World Organization for Animal Health, our institute, and all the collaborators, FAO and AUIBA or AUC. So my presentation, I will start with overview of COMESA, and then we'll look at the trade in animal and animal products, live animal trade in COMESA, and meat and offal trade in COMESA also. And then we'll look at the economic importance of CBPP and the CBPP as impediment to trade. And then we will look at the conclusion and the recommendation. COMESA, as you all know, has got 21 member states. It was established in 1994, and as you can see, it's a huge regional economic community stretching from north to south, with gross domestic product of 805 billion USD, and now it is in fact more than that. So COMESA is almost half of Africa. So our mandate emanates from COMESA Treaty. The treaty, in the treaty, we have agriculture part, the animal resources included in the agriculture. Chapter 18, Article 129 to 137 states about agriculture in general in the treaty. And we are also dictated by the COMESA identified priorities and the council decisions, and also aligned with the COMESA midterm strategic plan. COMESA has got midterm strategic plan, and we have got also livestock policy framework and the COMESA blue economy strategy, which recently developed with the support of AUIBA. As far as livestock trade is concerned for live animal, COMESA member states trade among themselves, and also they trade with the rest of the world and with the rest of Africa. As you can see on the data, the yellow one is the COMESA, extra COMESA export to the rest of the world. It is close to almost $1 billion per year that we export to the rest of the world. As you can see, the data has gone down in 2019 and 2020. That is due to COVID, and after COVID, you can see the pickup. When it comes to trade within Africa and within COMESA, the trade shows less because most of the trade, as far as live animal is concerned, it is informal trade. That is why we don't have data when it comes to the trade within, except the trade with the rest of the world. The same holds true with the edible animal products, meat and offals. The trade with the rest of the world is close to 300 million, but within Africa and within COMESA itself, the trade is very low. When it comes to East African trade, as you can see in the picture, there are corridors. The corridors are the Sudan corridor. The animals are coming from Chad and the Central African Republic, and also from Sudan to those countries, and from Sudan to the Middle East and to the North Africa. And there is also a corridor, Boran-Somali corridor, where the animals are going to the Middle East and also to North Africa, and also down to the Kenya and also other countries like Uganda. And there is a Karamoja corridor. The Karamoja corridor is from Uganda to the neighboring countries. When it comes to Eastern Africa, the animals are traded like that. And in East Africa, as you know, East Africa comprises Djibouti, Ethiopia, Somalia, Eritrea, Kenya, Uganda, and South Sudan. The region is livestock rich, and the livestock trade is one of the principal economic activities, especially for pastoralist community. Intra-regional and cross-border trade is largely unrecorded, except through formal trade. Except the formal trade, we don't have any data for an informal trade. And close to 50 to 70% of export from the Some of the countries depends on informal trade. They get the animal informally from neighboring countries, and then they export it to the other countries. So informal movement of animal is so huge as far as Eastern Africa is concerned. And the other one is Southern Africa. Live cattle movement is in general controlled in Southern African countries. But there is formal trade between Namibia and South Africa. Botswana, no live export is allowed except through the BMC, Botswana Meat Council. And exceptional is to Angola and also Zimbabwe. As you can see, they can export to Angola and Zimbabwe. And informal trade is very, very low. Carcass, Botswana and Namibia, they send to South Africa to Eswatini. Rawhides, Botswana, Eswatini to South Africa, and Botswana, Namibia, and South Africa, and Eswatini to EU. So in general, when we look at the economic losses to CBPP, there are two ways. One is direct losses, and the other one is indirect losses. The direct losses, which is visible loss and invisible loss. The visible loss is mortality, reduced milk production, as you have seen from earlier presentation from Zambia. There is a reduction of milk production, and also there is reduced weight gain, which results at the end of the day when the animals are sold. The weight is low, and reduced draft power, especially for those countries who uses animal power for drafting. And invisible loss is reduced fertility and also change in herd structure. The indirect loss is the loss due to the control and also foregone revenue. The cost of vaccine, cost of vaccination, cost of treatment, cost of diagnosis. These are the control costs and also the management and surveillance. And the foregone revenue is trade sanction or export sanction, and also socio-cultural issues. As far as CBP is concerned, as the sum of the direct and indirect reduction losses from the mortality and morbidity are the major measuring for the loss of from the CBPP. And the expenditures incurred to control the disease involves expenditures in terms of finance, human, and material, as we have seen. So economic losses shows the relationship between the value of output losses and the disease control expenditure. The higher the level of disease control, the lower the incidence of the disease. So to see, it's really very difficult to get the data, usually to measure the cost of the disease. And some of the studies which I referred is way behind. In Botswana, it was estimated that the closure of access to EU market can cost the country up to 350 million US. And it's only 4 countries currently, as we have heard: Botswana, Eswatini, South Africa, countrywide, and the Namibia zone, especially south of veterinary corridor fences. The 4 countries are only the countries which are free and can trade with the rest of the countries without problem. In Southern Africa countries, the latest report is from Namibia, 2021, 20, and 19. And Zambia and Namibia, we have heard the days that it has got official endorsement for the control. There is movement control, surveillance, and vaccination to control the disease transmission. And the informal cross-border trade does exist, but not as widespread as Eastern Africa. In Eastern Africa, the loss, there is a report of 5.2% positive for CBPP from the quarantine in Djibouti. And in Tanzania, in 2000, there was a loss of 250,000 heads of animal, which was estimated to be 50 million. Increased trade and the cattle movement are common in Eastern Africa and have resulted in the spread of CBPP. In pastoral production systems, effective control of cattle movement is completely impossible because of climatic conditions and also because of the trade. That cattle movement will continue. What happened is recently in Eastern Africa, there is a new development the last 5-6 years. There is coming up of feedlots, more than 5 years actually, close to 10 years now. Feedlots, cattle are treated for internal and external parasites and are injected broad-spectrum antibiotic before they are taken to the feedlots. And in feedlots, the animals are observed for 2 to 3 months under observation, and the clinical cases are treated. In addition, beef cattle do stay in border quarantine for 10 to 13 days for observation, depending on the requirement of the importing countries from the Middle East and North Africa. And the animals are tested and vaccinated for major tags. No such activity for informal trade and among neighboring countries in Eastern Africa, and animals are freely moving across the border. If they come through the formal, they are observed by technician, and if there is any problem, they are taken back to the country. So hygiene requirements for the importing countries from the Horn of Africa. As you can see, no requirement for CBPP except Egypt and Lebanon, where they need, where they require the test of the animal. And if the animal is found positive, it will be returned. So this is the only requirement and the hygiene requirement. And in conclusion, so CBP is one of the listed diseases, and the CBP is one of the tags that transmit from the country to the other through informal trade and cause an impediment to formal trade and resulting in economic loss. While working to develop effective vaccine that can protect the animal for at least 2 years and above, there is a need to continue movement control, surveillance, and vaccination using the available vaccine and the treatment of clinical cases and susceptible animals or susceptible cattle. There is a need to prepare a user-friendly explanatory manual on the proper use of antibiotics and appropriate vaccine handling and vaccination. And as a movement of animals across the border are common for trade and in search of feed under extensive production systems, especially in pastoralist production system in Eastern Africa, there is a need to continue coordination and harmonization of the control of major tasks across neighboring countries. Currently, in collaboration with IGAD, we are trying to harmonize the neighboring countries to launch the control to tasks, especially the CBPP and also other diseases, Rift Valley fever and so on. That is it. Thank you very much for giving us a chance to present. Thank you.